The wind whistled softly across the East African plateau, skimming over dry grass and dusty stone, brushing the twisted branches of the ancient dead tree that stood like a sentinel near the edge of the cliff. Below, the land dropped away in a sweeping gorge, cracked and vast, nature's reminder of both beauty and danger. This was home. To some, a harsh land; to others, sacred. To Sura, it was both. She moved like smoke through the grass, fluid, silent, the lean muscles of her leopard body rippling under her coat of dappled gold. Her amber eyes scanned the land constantly, ears alert for the rustle of danger. Around her, the earth smelled of sun-baked rock, dry soil, and the sharp tang of old bark from the skeletal tree she'd claimed as her den's anchor. And not far behind her, tumbling awkwardly through the grass, was Miko, her son, her first, barely 4 months old, his legs still too long for his body, his paws clumsy, his spots fuzzier than hers. He was full of energy, bouncing from tuft to tuft of grass, swatting at insects, and occasionally attempting to sneak up on lizards with exaggerated silence. Sura watched him with wary love. Motherhood had not softened her instinct for survival, but it had reshaped her world. Everything she did now, every step she took, every shadow she studied, was for him. She had chosen this high, dry plateau for its seclusion. Few larger predators ventured this far from the rivers. The grass was sparse but enough to hide in, and the cliffs discouraged hyenas and lions. The tree, ancient, dead, and hollowed by wind and time, served as shelter and perch. Its roots had anchored them here. Today, she trained him. She kept their hunting light, just chasing hares and rodents for now. Enough for Miko to practice the dance of speed and silence. She let him climb the lower branches of the dead tree, encouraging him with low chuffs as he awkwardly scrambled and tumbled back down. And always, she taught him to look up. Danger comes from the sky. Her gaze warned him. Up there, the open air was a highway of wings, vultures, kites, falcons, but none were as dangerous as the crowned eagle or its larger cousin, the great white-headed eagle that ruled this part of the plateau. Sura had seen one before. Years ago, it had snatched a young antelope right off the ground. It could carry a cub. It could carry Miko. In the late afternoon, when the sun cast long gold beams over the dry land, Miko scampered near the edge of the cliff, chasing his tail. Sura lay not far, resting her muscles, half-lidded eyes watching every twitch of his movement. But then, her ears flicked. A scent. Rabbit. Fresh. She stood slowly, her ribs tightened in hunger. She hadn't eaten since dawn. And the scent was close. Just over the ridge to the east. She looked back at Miko. He was crouched now, practicing a pounce on a rock. He was no more than 30 feet away. Close. Safe. Just a quick dash, she thought. 1 minute. Sura melted into the grass and disappeared over the ridge. Miko stayed close to the cliff, his tail twitching in excitement. He had just mastered the art of crouching, sort of. His haunches wobbled, and his balance shifted, but he'd managed to surprise a beetle earlier and was now full of confidence. He tried again, eyes fixed on a fluttering butterfly. And he didn't see the shadow glide across the ground behind him. Silent, fast, intent. From far above, the great white-headed eagle had been circling. Its wings spanned nearly 2 meters. Its hooked beak gleaming in the sun and its talons curved like knives. It had spotted the leopard cub earlier but waited for the adult to leave. Now, seeing the moment open before it, it dove, wings tucked, talons forward, falling like a spear from the sky. Miko heard the wind shift only seconds before impact. He turned. The world exploded in feathers and fury. Sora heard the screech. It wasn't Miko. It was the eagle. Her blood went cold. She turned on her heels and sprinted back. Claws digging into the hard earth. The ridge blurred past her. She leapt over stones and skidded around the tree. And then she saw it. The eagle, wings pumping hard, rising from the cliff's edge. And in its talons, a small, squirming shape. Miko. He twisted, yowling, his small claws scratching uselessly against the sky. Sora didn't think. She didn't hesitate. With a roar that ripped from her chest, she launched herself into the air. She struck the tree trunk with all her might, climbing faster than she ever had, her body moving on pure instinct and fire. She reached the top branch and leapt again, toward the eagle. For a heartbeat, they met in the air, cat and bird, predator and predator. Sora's claws scraped the eagle's wing, ripping feathers free. The bird screamed and banked hard. Thrown off balance, it faltered. Miko slipped. The eagle, struggling to recover, lost its grip, and the cub fell. It wasn't a long fall, but it was enough. Miko tumbled through the air, his cry echoing over the gorge, then landed hard on a narrow ledge a few meters down, hidden from above by scrub and rocks. Sora landed just below him on another ledge, scrambling for purchase. Her paws bled from stone scrapes. Her breath heaved. She turned in panic, couldn't see him. Miko. A tiny mule came in response. She looked down, just a few meters away. The cub, shaking, scratched at the ledge. His hind leg hung limp. He wasn't moving much, but he was alive. Sora climbed with slow, shaking limbs, her claws finding cracks in the cliff face. She reached him moments later and nuzzled his head, her breath shuddering. He mewed again and pressed his face into her neck. The eagle circled above, one wing visibly damaged, then veered off toward the horizon. It would not return today. Sora stayed with her cub, curled around him on the narrow ledge. The sun slipped below the edge of the plateau, casting them in shadow. Wind howled faintly up from the gorge. But she didn't move. Miko slept, tucked against her chest, his breath light but steady. She watched the sky for a long time. Because the sky had teeth. And the earth did, too. But tonight, she had him still. And that was everything. The scream tore through the sky. Not a cub's whimper, not the shriek of prey, but the raw, piercing cry of a predator triumphant. A great white-headed eagle ascending with its prize clutched in bloodied talons. Below, Sora burst from the underbrush like a shot of lightning, a streak of gold and muscle. ears pinned back, breath ragged. The scent of rabbit was gone, forgotten. In its place, the metallic sting of terror filled her chest. And above, rising swiftly on powerful wings, was her world, Miko, dangling from the eagle's feet, writhing, twisting, tiny claws scraping helplessly at the air. No, there was no time to think. No time for fear. The mother inside her roared louder than the laws of nature. She ran with a speed born not of instinct, but of desperation. The eagle was banking into the updraft, pulling higher above the canyon edge. It hadn't seen her yet. It didn't know what was coming. Sora's eyes snapped to the ancient dead tree, the one that had stood sentinel over her den for seasons. Its bleached limbs arched out toward the sky, the uppermost branches bare and cracked like open fingers reaching into space. She'd climbed it countless times, but never for this. Now, it would be her launch pad, her last chance. She didn't slow. The earth narrowed to a single point. The sound of wind rushing past her ears. The pounding of her paws against the rock-hard soil. The cries of her cub. All of it blended into one roar in her chest. She hit the trunk at full speed. Claws sank into bark. Splinters flew. She scrambled upward, barely touching each branch. Her body coiled like a spring, using every ounce of strength. Every memory of movement passed from generations of leopards before her. Higher. The eagle rose still, wings outstretched, catching the wind. Miko was a shape swinging beneath it, his tail limp, his cries softening. She had seconds. The branch beneath her bent. She leapt. It was not a jump designed by nature. It was madness, a mother's madness. Sora launched herself into the air, through empty space, through heat and altitude and fate. Her body arched, fully outstretched, like a streak of lightning thrown from the earth. Time fractured. In that instant, nothing existed but movement, the pull of gravity, the whistle of the wind tearing around her, the twist of the eagle's wing as it turned to climb, the glint of sunlight on its talons, the blur of Miko's fur, the edge of death just beyond her reach. She reached anyway. Her claws slashed the sky, and met resistance. It was not a full strike. Her front paw raked the eagle's flank, her claws tearing feathers loose. But more than that, her rear leg struck the bird's foot, the one gripping Miko. It was just enough. Startled, the eagle cried out, loud and shrill, and its foot twitched. One talon slipped. Miko fell. Not far, just a few meters. But it was enough. Sora's body crashed through the air beneath him. And in a wild contortion of limbs and instinct, she twisted mid-leap, opened her front legs, and caught him. They hit the edge of the canyon with bone-jarring force. Sora's back slammed into the rocky slope just below the ledge. She clawed desperately at a bush as her body slid. Miko cradled against her chest. Their momentum slowed, then stopped, barely a body length from the open drop. For a moment, all was still. The wind howled overhead. Dust swirled in the air. Above them, the eagle flapped unevenly, missing feathers trailing behind it as it beat a hasty retreat into the pale sky. It vanished into a current. too wounded or too shaken to return. Sura lay panting, chest heaving. Miko whimpered. She opened her eyes and saw his tiny face. Eyes wide, pressed against her fur. His body trembled. But he was alive. Alive. She licked his head once. Twice. Again. Reassuring him. Reassuring herself. Then she rolled gently onto her side, shielding him from the wind. It was hours before she moved again. When she did, it was slow, deliberate. She climbed back up the rocky slope with Miko on her back. Every muscle protesting, every scrape singing with pain. But her cub clung to her neck silently, trusting. Back in the hollow beneath the tree, she curled around him, her body a wall, her heartbeat the only lullaby. Miko slept. Sura stayed awake. Her eyes scanned the sky. Not out of fear, but in warning, because now the sky knew what it meant to face a mother. Time fractured in the heart of the sky. 3 lives spun through open air, caught in a moment so impossible, so primal, that even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Miko's body twisted in the eagle's talons. Fur ruffled violently by the wind. His pupils were wide with terror, mouth open in a silent cry. The world around him was nothing but blinding sky, crushing air, and the cold grip of death. Above him, the eagle flared its wings. Thrown off balance, the sharp, curved talons that had grasped the cub just moments ago now fought to hold on. One leg jerked free as Sura's claws raked across its flank. Pain and confusion surged through the raptor's instincts. What had been a clean escape was now chaos. The bird beat its wings hard, trying to regain control, and then there was Sura, caught in the void between earth and sky. Her entire body coiled with raw, fearless force. Her ears were flat, her teeth bared, not in desperation, but in purpose. Her amber eyes locked on her son's, no fear, only fire, determination carved into her bones. This was her moment, and she would not let the sky take him. Slow motion. Miko's eyes met hers for a heartbeat. He saw her, not just his mother, but something older, greater, a spirit of survival, of love sharpened to a blade. She was flying toward him, defying every law of gravity, of nature, of reason. The eagle screeched, a jagged sound of frustration and alarm. It couldn't climb, couldn't turn. Instinct took over. It released. Miko dropped. He fell fast, limbs flailing, a silent blur against the sky. And Sura, already twisting in midair, arched her spine, angled her descent, and dove. She caught him. Her paws swept him into her chest, claws curling around his trembling form. She tucked her head protectively over his and pulled her body inward, wrapping him in muscle and fur. They were still falling. The cliffside rushed up to meet them. A blur of rock. Then, impact. They crashed into the thorns and brush lining the cliff's edge. Sura hit first, her shoulder slamming against a jagged root. Pain exploded through her leg. She grunted, shielding Miko with her weight. The pair tumbled down a short embankment. Dry earth spraying, branches snapping. Then silence. Dust floated in the air. Catching the last light of the afternoon sun, the wind whispered through the grass. Nothing moved. Then, a breath. Miko stirred, his head emerging from under Sura's chest. He blinked. Alive. He let out a small, scared cry and pressed his face into her side. Sura groaned. She tried to move, but her right hind leg screamed in protest. Blood seeped from a gash along her flank, and her paw bent awkwardly beneath her. Still, her ears twitched. Alert. She lifted her head slowly and sniffed the air. No bird, no danger, just dust, blood, and her cub, alive and warm beside her. She exhaled shakily and licked his ear. For a while, they simply lay there. The brush had saved them, broken their fall just enough. Miko had been fully protected by her embrace. Spared any real injury. Sura had taken the worst of it. Her breathing was shallow, her muscles twitching, but she stayed alert. Slowly, gently, she pulled herself upright, favoring her injured leg. Miko stuck close to her side, pressing against her, his body still trembling. She limped. Each step was agony, but she moved forward, head low, scanning for shelter. She found a shallow cave beneath an overhang, shaded by roots and thorns, just big enough to hide them for the night. Inside, she collapsed. Miko curled beside her, wide-eyed and silent. Outside, the wind blew gently, carrying the scent of distant rain and the fading scent of eagle feathers. That night, the moon rose over the plateau, casting silver light across the highlands. Inside the hollow, Miko lay curled in the crook of Sura's belly. Her wound had stopped bleeding, though the leg remained stiff and swollen. She would recover. She had to, because Miko needed her, and she had made a promise in that leap, without words, without thought, that no force of nature, no winged terror, would take him from her while breath still lived in her chest. She had roared into the wind, and the wind had heard her. Far above, perched in a distant baobab tree, the eagle watched the night with sharp eyes. Its wing trembled where her claws had struck. It would remember the shape of that leap, the ferocity of a mother who turned the sky against it. Even predators learn, and some lines are not crossed twice. By dawn, Sura was limping less. The pain was there, but manageable. She stood at the edge of their new shelter. Miko beside her. The cub looked up at her. His face changed, not in fear, but in awe. He had seen her fly. He had seen the wind itself bend around her. He had seen what love could become when sharpened by fire. Sura lowered her head and nudged him forward. The sun was rising. There was a new day to meet. And for now, they would walk it, together. The days after the fall were quiet. High on the dry plateau, under the open skies of East Africa, life took on a slower rhythm, measured not by the hunt or the chase, but by healing, by vigilance, and by the unspoken bond between a mother and her child. The ancient dead tree near the cliff's edge, once only a landmark, now stood like a monument, its branches split, its trunk scraped with the marks of claws and fate, and beneath its silent watch, a story of survival unfolded. Sura's leg was healing, but slowly. Each morning, she tested her weight on it. The pain flared sharply at first, sharp enough to steal her breath, but it dulled over the days, turning into a persistent ache she could bear. She could limp now, she could stalk, slowly, she could still live. But more than ever before, she was not alone. Miko never strayed. Gone was the playful, distracted cub who used to chase beetles through the tall grass, tumbling over his own paws and pawing at butterflies near the cliff. Since the day Sora leapt through the sky to save him, something inside him had shifted, like a spark ignited and held firm. He followed her everywhere, not out of fear, but respect. When she moved, he mirrored. When she sat, he scanned the sky. Each gust of wind overhead made his ears flick. Each shadow crossing the sun pulled his gaze upward. The games of his cubhood had given way to caution. Awareness, instinct, once guided only by curiosity, was now sharpened by memory. He had seen what the sky could bring, and he would not be caught off guard again. Sora taught him in whispers now. Her growls were soft, gentle, less command, more guidance. She showed him how to use cover not just for stalking prey, but for hiding from eyes above. How to crouch in shadow when the wind was wrong. How to move slowly, breathe low. Together, they learned the plateau anew, its ridges, its scent trails, its hiding spots. They hunted only small game, for Sora could not yet bring down anything large. But even in that, something beautiful happened. Miko began to bring food to her. It started one morning, just after dawn. Sora was resting beneath a low thicket, her injured legs stretched gingerly before her, when she heard a soft sound at her side. She lifted her head, ears twitching. There, clumsily dragging a half-dead lizard in his teeth, was Miko. He dropped it awkwardly at her paws, tail raised proudly, panting slightly from the effort. Sora blinked, stunned. She sniffed the offering. It was fresh, still twitching. Miko looked up at her, waiting. Without a word, she leaned down and ate it, slowly, deliberately. Then, licking her lips, she reached out and pulled him gently toward her with one paw. She licked his head once. It was not just approval. It was gratitude. From that day on, he hunted daily. Sometimes it was a grasshopper, sometimes a bird chick, or a mouse flushed from a rocky hole. He was not strong yet, nor swift, but he was learning, and each time he returned with something, however small, he laid it in front of her, waiting to be seen. And she saw him, not as a cub, but as a son, a partner in survival. One evening, as the sun bled orange and crimson across the horizon, they sat side by side beneath the ancient dead tree. A soft wind stirred the dry branches above them, whistling like old stories. The tree, though split and weathered, still stood firm. Miko rested his head against his mother's shoulder. Her side rose and fell gently. Still healing, still strong. The stars would come soon. The predators of the dark would stir. But for this moment, there was peace. Sora turned and nuzzled Miko's head, her whiskers brushing his fur. He looked up at her, eyes bright with something older than his months, something learned in wind and claw and the long fall from sky to earth. He was no longer just a cub. He was her strength, just as she had been his. And under that tree, thought to be dead and hollow, new life stirred, not in bark or bloom, but in two hearts that refused to give in, and in the silent promise they carried, we will endure, together. The high plateau shimmered under the late morning sun, a vast expanse of gold, stone, and wind. Time had carved this land into something enduring, something wild and sacred, etched with the echoes of predators, prey, and stories older than memory. And on this wind-swept crown of the world, a young leopard walked with purpose. Miko, no longer the awkward, wide-eyed cub of a year ago. His body was now lithe and powerful, his shoulders full, his stride fluid, his fur gleamed like sunlit bronze, and the rosettes on his coat had deepened into bold, proud patterns. His breath was steady, his eyes sharp, his silence lethal. He was no longer learning the land. He ruled it. The old tree near the cliff, long split and scarred by time and storm, still stood tall. Miko often returned there, not to play, but to watch. It was the highest perch for miles, the best place to survey the vastness of his territory, and from there, he could see it all. The gorge below, the thornbrush ridges, the migration trails far to the east, and the sky, especially the sky, because that's where his story began. Sura no longer lived on the plateau. Months ago, when she sensed that Miko had fully come into his own, she had limped down to the forested edge of the reserve, settling into the shadows of the lower acacia groves. Her leg never healed perfectly, but it allowed her to hunt small prey and move with enough stealth to remain invisible. She still visited, from afar, sometimes. At dawn, Miko would catch her scent carried on the wind, dry earth, leaves, and the quiet strength of a mother who had taught him everything. He didn't chase after it. He didn't need to, because he carried her legacy in every step. And every time he climbed the cliffs. Every time he scanned the sky with steady eyes. Every time he walked the old trails they'd once stalked together. He honored the leap that had saved him. This morning, the wind shifted. Miko stood on a high outcrop just above the dead tree. Eyes on the horizon. Below, gazelles grazed in the distance. Farther still, a group of jackals stirred near the river bend. Everything was in its place. Then, a shadow passed over the ground. A wide one. Smooth, circular, slow. Miko didn't flinch. He looked up, high above, cutting through the clouds like a ghost of the past. Soared a great white-headed eagle. Its wings were massive, steady. It floated with effortless grace. Its sharp eyes scanning the ground below. Once, such a shadow might have sent Miko scrambling for cover. Once, he might have cowered or cried or looked for his mother's embrace. But not now. Miko remained still, rooted. He stood tall on the rock, tail low but still, golden eyes tracking the eagle with unshaken calm. He made no sound, but everything about his posture said one thing. Not here, not anymore. The eagle turned, not in fear, but in understanding. This was not a plateau left unwatched, not a sky left unguarded. The cub was gone, In his place stood a leopard grown, one who had been forged in wind and fall, who had once been taken and brought back by fire and fur and love. And now, he owned the sky. Below, at the edge of the forest, Sura rested in the shade, her golden body hidden beneath thick brush. Her ears twitched as a warm breeze carried the scent of the plateau downhill. She lifted her head. No cry, no warning, no sound of struggle, just stillness, peace. Her eyes closed, and she exhaled slowly. Miko had seen it, and this time, he did not run. Later that evening, as the sun dipped low, turning the cliffs to fire and the grasslands to gold, Miko lay on the branch of the old tree, the one that had once broken his mother's fall, the one that had witnessed their wild leap against the sky. The wind played in his fur. He watched birds dart through the lower thermals and listened to the hush of the world below. This land was his now. Not claimed by blood or violence, but by survival, by honor, and by something deeper, something carved into his very bones. A memory, a moment, a legend. Because the leap that once defied death had done more than save him. It had shaped him, forged him, made him a guardian not just of land, but of air and story. And somewhere, in the blue above him, where wind and sky crossed paths, a mark remained invisible to all but those who remembered. A paw print, pressed not into soil or rock, but into the sky itself, where it would never fade.
Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, please comment 1. And if you didn't, just hit like. See you in the next videos.